Hey everybody, we're going to talk about aliens and crap like that again today. Before I get started, I just want to say if I look tired, I am. I've been examining pictures and footage and reading stories and researching people's stories for about 16 hours straight. I took a break to watch Poltergeist with the wife earlier, and I kind of half got on blog TV for a while I was doing this, but other than that, it's been about 16 hours straight. So if I look tired, that's why. The second thing is I wanted to thank everybody who has sent me videos and stories and things like that and asked me to look into them. Obviously, I try, but I can't do every one of them. I just can't. There's many reasons why. Some of them, I look at, I just don't see anything there or see any reason to look any further. Some of them, there's just nothing to go on, no reference, no nothing. It's just a video of the sky and, something goes through the frame. I mean, that could be anything from somebody off camera threw a rock in front of it, a bird flew by, or it could be a TIE fighter left over from the Death Star after it was destroyed and has nowhere to land. Who knows? I mean, you just have no reference to go on with that. And with today's, software on computers, it is so easy to fake this stuff. It's not even ridiculous. I don't do it. I'm not a hoaxer. I'm the type of person who's interested in this kind of stuff because I'm really interested in the genius behind some of this stuff, because I think people don't give hoaxers enough credit for how elaborate they're willing to be on some of these things. And it's really interesting. Just because somebody is hoaxing something doesn't mean that they're an idiot. Just because they're out to trick people doesn't mean they're morons. And these are some smart people. If you haven't seen Chatty Spike, he talks about this, and he actually does some hoax videos where he shows how things can be hoaxed. I'll put a link to his channel somewhere here. But let's get on to what we're talking about here. We're talking about like alien abductions and some things. I've got a show I'm going to bring up a couple of points on. Alien abductions. I just can't wrap my head around why some advanced civilization that has figured out how to cross interstellar space is interested in kidnapping people. I mean, I understand that we go out and, we study animals. We bring them back to the zoo, the lab, and check them out. But as far as, these aren't people who are just vanishing and, their bodies are being dissected and we just never see them again. These are people who are, their stories say that, they were abducted and they were released back into the wild with some, computer chip in them and stuff like that. And it's like, how many noses and asses do these aliens have to dig in before they know what's up in, a human being's nose or an alien, or a human being's ass? This is an advanced civilization. This isn't us trying to figure out biology. These are people who have crossed interstellar space, and you'd think that they could take, one look and be like, oh, okay, we got it. And it just baffles me that, these people, that so many people claim this. It's just, a little bit baffling there to me. And as far as, the anecdotal evidence, I hear all the time, why would somebody make something like this up? Or people are willing to believe somebody, like they know a friend, that they completely trust. And they say this guy wouldn't lie. But, he says he was abducted by an alien, or he saw a Bigfoot, or, chupacabra, or whatever. And so that's supposed to lend some sort of credence to this person's testimony as to this being true. Personally, to me, it doesn't. I mean, I have to look no further than the amount of divorces we have in the United States from one spouse cheating on the other spouse, unbeknownst to them. So imagine the shock when this person who completely trusts this other person and wouldn't expect them to do something like that and be dishonest with them like this, and it happens. And it results in a divorce. We have to look no further than that to understand that people that, love, and trust will be dishonest with you. And I don't see that as shocking one bit, that people will make things up. I really don't. So, let's start off with a clip that was sent to me about an alien abduction, or a supposed alien abduction, that was caught on a security camera. And this video is over a span of about 2 hours. You'll see a timestamp on it that gets edited where they clipped it and cut it, and it goes from like 11 to like 1 o'clock. And so you'll see that little step there, but let's watch the footage and we'll come back and discuss it. All right, so we had a guy in a factory-type setting who steps outside of a gate, and there's a bright light. Then the time-lapse, kicks in there where they edited out the 2 hours of footage we didn't get to see. And then he comes back. You see a light. He's laying on the ground there. He comes out, crawls around, pukes, and gets up and walks away. And that's all we know about this. The story behind it is somebody that worked at this place, wherever it is, it's unknown or unnamed. Whoever sent the video and didn't identify the place, they said this happened to this worker, and shortly after this he moved away and nobody knows where. And that's all the story we have to this footage. I blew it up and took a look at it, and so there's a few things I want to go over in it. So let's look at a few things and I'll just narrate over it. All right, I'm going to run this back and forth a few times, and what we're looking at here is the little cabinet underneath the pause symbol there. What we're trying to determine is is there anything between us and that cabinet in this shot other than that shadow right there. So I'm going to show clips or frames number 342 and 343, and we'll look at the shadows here. All right, what we got here is frame number 342. This is the last frame in the video before the light of the supposed abduction happens. So this is the last glimpse of everything we get to see before anything happens. What I'm interested in is that little cabinet over there and our line to it. I did not see anything in it obstructing our view of that cabinet while the guy was walking back and forth in front of it. And right now we can see this shadow on the floor that appears to be coming from an overhead light source. And so I'm going to keep watching that when we fire up the next frame. All right, now we're looking at frame number 343. This is the very next frame in the video. The light is instantaneous, and all of a sudden everything is bathed in this light. And we can see the shadows from the fence there that did not get open. We see the gate is swung open. We get no shadow off of that, and we can see the shadow on the floor in the lower part of the shot here where the light from the outside has created this shadow. But if we look back towards the cabinet, now we can see that there appears to be something in between us and in that cabinet there. We didn't get to see it before, but apparently it's there now. But look at the shadow around it from the overhead. Whatever that overhead lighting was, that shadow remains, where the shadow of that object that appears there, it casts no shadow. The light from the outside is strong enough to overcome that shadow, but it does nothing to the shadow next to it. So I'm going to flip these two frames back and forth and let you take a closer look at this. So does that make it conclusive that this was faked or not? No, I don't think so, but it was interesting enough that I decided to run an experiment and see if I couldn't replicate it. So let's see what I got. Okay, so I've gone back to the original shot and I've tried to simulate something similar. Here I have a overhead light casting a shadow onto the floor. I've got a ream of computer paper for a wall, and I'm going to introduce light outside of this scenario and see where it falls. Okay, you can see my shadow from the simulated wall matches that of the original shot, but the light bathing in lights up everything just like I assumed it would, and it doesn't do that in the original shot. One other thing that I simulated was that this is actually indoors, so I created a roof over the building and shined the light down again, and I got the shadow of the roof and the door opening, whereas we don't see that in the original shot. looks like this was not taken. The light in this video appears that it didn't come from above. So it's not like something shining down on it, because we don't get the shadow of the building, obstructing this light. So now it looks even fishy, because I didn't think of this until I ran the experiment and got this shot. So after running my little experiment, I'm actually now leaning more towards hoax than I was before. Before it just looked a little fishy, and I wasn't really sure. It's like, should it be that way? But once I ran the experiment, I saw that, yes, the light would bathe in and drown out that overhead shadow. And then once I added the roof of the building and the door jamb, that changed everything. Because then the light couldn't come from above. It had to come in from an angle or be below the door jamb. It was the only way for me to get the same shot, and not have the shadow of the top of the door in the shot. So whoever altered this footage didn't take the top of the door into consideration if the light was coming from above. The only other option was if it was some alien, in a UFO or a spaceship, because it wouldn't be a UFO if we knew it was an alien, shined this beam of light down and abducted this guy. They had to do it from an angle. One of them two. It either had to be flying solo, that it was beneath the top of the door, or it had to come in from an angle. It was the only way to get that shot. So my little theory on the shadow, I was actually right, but that's not the strongest evidence now. Now it's the door, the outline of the door, because it was obvious as soon as I put simulated a roof and a door over this thing. It changed the entire picture immediately, and my whole outlook was, holy crap, now I've got real problems trying to simulate this, and it can't be done with a light shining straight down. I couldn't do it. I had to alter the height of the light, or severely alter the angle to get the shot to look the way it did in the video. So it's really suspect now. Is it conclusive? No. But is it leaning way towards the hoax side? Definitely. One more little thing on this video, and then I'm going to be through beating this dead horse. The very first frame after the little time-lapse edit shows something interesting, and I'm going to put that in right here. You see this little blob in the center of the screen? This happens approximately 85 frames before the abductee is returned in this beam of light that comes down. And so I'm going to show these side by side. What we have is the abductee here and this circle of light are actually in the footage before they appear. This is 85 frames earlier than his reappearance in the video. So this was masked over and then highlighted once it was the event was supposed to have happened. We couldn't see this earlier in the video if it didn't happen, or if it wasn't already in the video and masked over. So this is really looking like tampered footage to me, and so I have no reason to investigate any further or even ask any more questions due to just what I'm seeing on video. So let's move on. Okay, another thing I got sent was a show called Confirmation of Aliens. This aired back in the 90s on NBC. And first thing I want to get out of the way is this guy.
If you're a skeptic, it's easy to brush off. But if you're open-minded and you see this, there's something weird about it.
Okay, so according to this guy, you either are a skeptic or you're open-minded. Wrong. I'm working from the starting point that this is something that I don't know what it is. Whatever I'm looking at, I'm not sure what that is. All right, so I have to rule out everything else before I say this is extraterrestrial life from another planet that we have never encountered before. I have to rule out a lot of things that this could possibly be before I come to that conclusion. Just seeing a little thing move on a video is not evidence for extraterrestrial life. That's evidence for a little thing moving on video. All right. If I can identify it, I will. If I can't identify what that is, I say, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm undecided. Could be aliens. Not very likely, but possible. Until they land or, invade, it's hard to, look at a little dot on a screen and say, okay, I'm being open-headed about it. That must be aliens until somebody shows me that it's a dust particle or something. That's completely ass backwards, and so I'm not going to be that way. I'm not going to go through this entire show, just a couple of little things. First is this NASA footage, so let's take a look at that.
What you're seeing now is actual footage shot by NASA cameras from that shuttle mission. Watch the top of your screen. Note the object that moves from right to left. 2 mysterious flashes, and it makes an immediate 135-degree turn and accelerates. This is followed by a strange streak of light, which seems to narrowly miss the unknown object. This dramatic footage has been in dispute since it was shot.
I studied it extensively over maybe a 2-year period at least.
University of Nebraska physicist Jack Kasher worked for nearly 10 years in the research and development of a Star Wars defense system for the upper atmosphere. His quantitative analysis of the NASA footage concludes that the UFO cannot be explained as a natural phenomenon.
It's clearly above the atmosphere and air glow of the Earth. It maneuvers, it changes direction, it accelerates, and so the only thing really left is spacecraft.
Others think this object is simply a small ice particle floating a few feet from the shuttle. Ice particles are a common waste product of the numerous shuttles that have orbited Earth. But Kasher is convinced NASA has recorded strong evidence of a large, intelligently controlled alien space vehicle.
One of the very strange things that happens is that the main object actually stops and sits there for half a second before it accelerates back up to the right. An ice particle could not do that. If they're not ice particles, you don't have too many other options. They're not space junk, they're not satellites, they're not meteors, because those objects don't change direction.
There's never been anything that I've experienced that gave me any cause to consider that there might be other life forms.
Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, has a different opinion.
I mean, the sky is filled with moving objects here. Do I think that they are, that is credible evidence? No way. You got to have much more confirming it. That doesn't impress me very much.
To me, I don't see anything in the video that reflects anything about UFO.
Research scientist Skeet Vaughn studies the upper atmosphere for NASA. He believes the unknown objects are common space debris or waste products, most likely from the shuttle itself. And he has a theory to explain their movement.
If you look at the video very carefully, you'll notice there's a flash of light. And that flash of light is probably the thruster engine on one of the shuttles. When you have a thrust effect, the thrusting of the gases move out, and that hits the object and makes the object move also.
So that seems quite a bit more plausible than an alien or spacecraft. But I'm going to replay that footage. Watch it again and keep in mind what the guy said about the thruster effect, because there's other particles that start to move as soon as you see that little thrust flash. Other particles begin to move. There's one kind of following the one that they're highlighting off to the right side of the screen. Watch that one. And there's one where the guy put the arrow. There's another one that's just sitting still. Then once the thruster flashes, it starts to move as well as the other one. The thing that they're calling a missile or something trying to intercept it, who knows? It could be another particle coming in from into view. The thing is, they tried to allude to the fact that this would have come from over central Australia on the day and time that this footage was taken, and that there just happens to be a U.S. installation out in the middle of Australia somewhere, and it's rumored that they might have missiles there. They have no confirmation of that. It's just they leave it at it's rumored there. So, ooh, spooky. The problem is, I don't know how good my video is going to render this, but there's actually 2 objects that look like they're fired from the or rising from the surface, and it's from a different area of the planet. So we would have to account for 2 missile launches that nobody noticed on this day. So let's take a look at that footage again and look for the other particles that move in this shot.
Dr. Mark Carlotto has 20 years of experience conducting digital image processing for scientific research.
These were not videos taken by someone in their backyard. These were taken aboard a U.S. spacecraft, so the integrity of the data cannot be questioned. NASA's explanation is that what we're looking at here are ice particles floating around the shuttle, but when you look at it more carefully, it doesn't make sense. If it was a thruster firing, when the thruster firing occurs, the orientation of the spacecraft should change, very slightly. But we don't see any change in the apparent motion of the stars, so that indicates the attitude of the shuttle has not changed from the thruster firing.
So is it from the thrusters or not? One guy said that if the thrusters fired, we would see the attitude of the shuttle change. Problem was, they showed the shuttle fire its thrusters twice in two different shots, and the attitude of the shuttle didn't change in either time. So let's watch those again. So I think the hypothesis being put forward that it's something actually pretty close to the shuttle being affected by the thruster movements is quite a bit more plausible than an alien craft changing direction radically and getting out of dodge while we fire nukes at it or whatever. Okay, so that's about enough of that one. Later in the show, they talk about Roswell again, and they're trying to determine why aliens would be interested in Roswell. In 1946, Roswell was the home base of the 509th Bomber Wing. It went by a slightly different name, but that's basically what's going on here. This is the same group that bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They were based at Roswell. So the only military force that has ever used nuclear weapons in conflict originated from this base. So this is where, a year later, 1947, the crash of a supposed spacecraft happened. So they're saying that the aliens recognized that we had nuclear capability, and they were coming down to investigate, these people that, or this base where this thing originated from, or this attack. And that's not necessarily the case. They make a statement here which is absolutely wrong. Let's check it out.
But why 1947? Why would beings from another world choose this particular period to visit Earth?
One favorite theory was that extraterrestrials had observed nuclear explosions going on the Earth's surface and realized that we had come to some level of technological development where they had to pay attention to us, because it would not be very long after this that we ourselves would be going out into space, which of course is what has happened.
Still, the numerous sightings of 1947 might have been forgotten had it not been for what happened in a deceptively quiet corner of the American Southwest.
Roswell, New Mexico is still the mother of all UFO stories.
In 1947, the Cold War was heating up, and the Roswell Army Airfield, home of the 509th Bomber Wing, was the only base in the world that had nuclear weapons.
Okay, now this actually isn't quite the case. So it's not like that this 509th Bomber Wing was stationed at Roswell, and so since they were the ones who dropped the atomic bomb, they had all the bombs, and they kept them right there at Roswell with the planes. This isn't how the military operates. If you go to a military unit, you go visit a Ranger battalion, let's just use them as an example, and you go to a company's arms room, you will find a plethora of weapons of all kinds of varieties. But one thing you will not find in that arms room is bullets. They don't allow ammunition storage in there. Privately owned weapons, I might be mistaken. They might allow that, but they don't store the military ammunition in there. Right, that's stored elsewhere. If you take something like Norfolk Naval, the naval base in Norfolk, where they have aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines, the airplanes on the aircraft carriers, when the ship is not out at sea, the planes aren't on the carrier, right? They're over at the I can't think of the name of the base off my top of my head. Norfolk Naval. Anyway, I can't think of the name of the base off the top of my head. It's been years since I've been there. And the things like the weapons and the missiles and things like that aren't they aren't on the ship while it's sitting there. When it comes in, they disarm everything and take the ammunition over to the Yorktown Naval Weapons Station over there, and that's where they store everything. And the same goes for something like this. They don't store atomic bombs on the base with the planes that are going to go drop them. They store them at a different base. And that base just happens to be the Sandia base. At this time, it was called the Sandia base up near Albuquerque, right outside of, Kirkland Air Force Base. I'll show a picture here. If you look at the foreground here, this is the old Kirkland Army Air Base, what it was called before it was Kirkland Air Force Base. And if you look in the distance just past it, there's another little base out there. That is the weapons depot. That is Sandia. That is the equivalent of Area 51 of that day. That's where they kept this stuff. This is 200 miles from Roswell. It's true that these planes were stationed at Roswell, but if they were to go on a mission, they would get their ammunition from here. So it's not like these nuclear weapons were at Roswell and the aliens decided they better come down and check these things out, because if they were, they would be buzzing Kirkland and Sandia. So, these videos and documentaries, they put forth a lot of things that aren't quite factually true, and just some of this stuff just blows my mind. And like I said, I'm completely open-minded to the fact that there might be aliens out there and they might be visiting us. I just don't see any evidence for it at all. And just seeing, something move on the screen on a video, to me, that's not evidence. That's evidence for something moving on the screen. I have to rule out everything else before I can say that's an alien. I can say it's possible, but that's the best I can do on that. So this video is long enough. Let's get on to something else. Take care, everybody.